everyone is investing, but not everyone is planning. So today, let's decode the journey of wealth with the four big verticals.
The most interesting part of this new generations are they're completely digital.
Truly for me, SIP is SIP. It is a stepping into the prosperity. Anyone intend to create a wealth, get an SIP, even a small money, whichever the goals you have, SIP is the way to do.
I mean, Gen Z audience is nowadays entire digital. So your point of connecting a real life scenario to the Gen Z perspective is totally awesome. Now, I've been missing Deepak sir on the stage, so my next question will be definitely to him now.
Before we go to the next question, I'd just like to add some points here when you are talking about asset allocation, right? So what I've seen is there are two kinds of people. First kind of people, they have one investment portfolio for all their goals. And second type of people are people who have different portfolios for different goals. Which is better out of these two? Different portfolios for different goals, right? And asset allocation depends on only one thing, and that is time to gold. Nothing else. Age has nothing to do with it, right? If you have an 80-year-old person who wants to save money for his grandson who is 2 years old and will require this money after 16 years, where would you put that money? Equity or debt? Equity. And there's a 20-year-old person who wants to buy a car next year. Where would you put that money? Debt. So you are advising a 80-year-old person to buy equity and 20-year-old person to buy debt. Why? Time to go. Right? And asset allocation is the most important thing which decides 90% of your returns. Right? Your return is decided only by which asset class you chose. Not where you put that money into that asset class, because that would average out. And that's the reason we say the most important decision you take is asset allocation. But asset allocation as per your requirement of money. If you do it wrong and this person would have invested, who wants to buy a car next year, if you would have put the money in equity and the market tanked, he would not even have been able to buy the tires of the car. Right? And the biggest risk in investing is not achieving your goal. It's not money. Right? I need money for X. Suppose I want to send my daughter to higher education. If I don't have that money at that time, is there a greater risk than that? The real risk is not achieving your goal. Risk is not money going up or down. That's not the risk. And asset allocation change, what you call reallocation or rebalancing of asset allocation, that allows you to ensure that you reach your goal, so that risk is reduced. That's the reason why asset allocation is so important. But asset allocation is not a static thing. I decide today and I fill it and shut it and forget it. It's a dynamic thing. You need to change it. It keeps on changing as you evolve, as your conditions evolve, as time to goals decreases. So one must, it might look as a little technical thing, but it's a common sense. Right? If you just, investing is 90% common sense. Right? What we charge money to you in training is for common sense. But common sense is not very common. That's the problem.
Fabulous, I think, Deepak. I think you put it very rightly. And, to put it in a simple terms, and asset allocation, the way you explained is fabulous. And I look at like this, I had a professor of mine in finance who used to tell us, if I am not adapted for asset allocation, he used to crude way, he used to tell us, you are an asset every location.
That's brutal. That's brutal.
Very brutal. And probably, if I like this is the best part. Asset allocation is a way. I mean, it's a strategic blueprint which can work for you. You want to create a wealth, then there is a plan. There is an asset class which I can use very differently. I want to protect wealth. I want to use the different kind of asset classes so that I can, because it is the one which is giving the most convenience and which is giving the most flexibility, and you are more comfortable. You are mitigating the risks, optimizing the returns, and safeguarding your goals so that you get your money when you need it, as Deepak said.
Great.
Very nice. I'll remember this. You are an asset every allocation. Common things are not more common. And MRF is the mobile replacement fund. brilliant. Loving it.
The concept of this is wonderfully going on. Now, yet again, that I said that I'm missing Deepak sir. So he has his own way of guiding the things around. So, thinking about, most people think about distribution planning is only for retirement. But even at the age of 35 years old, now planning passive income through SWPs. Now, my question is to Deepak sir, that can you explain what is systematic withdrawal planning means and who should actually use it, sir?
The systematic withdrawal plan is a plan where an EMI is paid by the mutual fund industry to you, right? So it's basically reverse EMI, right? When you take a loan, you pay EMI. Here you have invested money and the mutual fund company pays you an EMI, which could be monthly, quarterly, or yearly, right? As you choose. And the biggest benefit is that if you need regular income, you have two options. Either you choose a mutual fund with a dividend payout option, or you choose a SWP. Now, problem with the dividend payout option in a mutual fund is that dividend is not guaranteed. Amount of dividend is not guaranteed. And dividend is added to your income and it becomes taxable. If instead of that, I start a SWP where I instruct my AMC or the mutual fund company that sell these many units of mine and put that money into my bank account every month, every quarter, that mode of withdrawal becomes SWP. And the benefit is now instead of these things being added to my income, I am charged a capital gain tax on it depending on how long I held those units. And generally, you will be holding them for more than a year. So it will go to the long-term capital gain. So you are, instead of a 30% tax bracket, which a dividend would take you, you are at a 12.5% tax bracket. And you are assured of that transfer of money or coming to you, irrespective of what happens in the market. Right? But yes, what amount of SWP can you afford from a investment is something which a good planner would help you decide. And this is what you can afford, because you can't kill the hen for the eggs. No? The hen should survive, right? So what you are able to afford is another thing which some apps or some calculators can tell you, or a good mutual fund distributor and advisor can tell you what you can afford to take out from your investment every month.
Wow, sir. I mean, from the hens concept, I was just about to remember that case, golden eggs and the hen story. So definitely, that concept really relates with the topic. Now, again, I would again ask a real case scenario where distribution planning gave someone a peace of mind.
So
A real example.
So I do lot of sessions for these about to retire public sector employees, right? So I do it for Indian Oil and other use. So there they have regular pensions built into it, right? See, suppose I take a case of a retired person, right? A retired person would have two kinds of expenses, right? Actually, there are three, but let's consider two. One is called survival expense, and second is called the joy expenses. Survival expense is your expense which you have to pay to survive, and it gives you something which is called financial dignity. Right? After retirement, the biggest problem is dignity, and the biggest issue is dignity. It's not money for many people, because lack of money brings indignity. Having money might not give you respect, but not having money gives you disrespect. That's guaranteed. So that's survival expense. But there is another expense which is called joy expense, which is discretionary in nature. So Priya, if I ask you a question, and this question is very simple, right? Would your expenses post-retirement go up, remain same, or go down?
Go up.
There is no inflation. Suppose there is no inflation.
There's no inflation, so I think it should go up.
Why? Okay, let me put it another way. Do you spend more on weekdays or weekends?
Weekends.
And this is a permanent weekend of life. So expenses are bound to go up. But what would go up is the joy expenses.
Yes.
And SWP is linked to a asset class where returns are variable. It depends on the market, right? And your joy expenses can go up and down. So in this with this individual, what I told him was, you match your survival expenses with your guaranteed income product like a pension or something. But your joy expenses should be matched with the SWP you can afford depending on the market, how the market behaves. So that the total is what you can afford, right? So basically this is how it works for most people. It's a mix and match. It cannot be one way of taking out money or creating incomes. Like we said, you should divide it. Guaranteed income product and variable income. SWP is a variable income product because equity returns are variable. They depend on the markets. So market does very well, I go to Europe. Market does little less well, I go to Karnataka. Very simple. That's in my end.
So I mean, nicely put in, sir. So I would really want to ask Romit sir here that how do we make spending wealth a topic that is aspirational, not fearful? Now this is again about Gen Zs and the new
That's a very
generation.
tough question. Spending wealth से तो पहले सुन के तो लग रहा है कोई guilty feeling आ रहा है. You're spending wealth. You know, when we were young people, parents used to say that you are wasting your father's money. So I think spending wealth to me, or maybe from a Gen Z's point of, from a Gen Z's point of view, sounds like you get into a guilt zone, guilty feeling like that. But I think, spending wealth, if not understood properly, can be super boring. And I think what Deepak sir rightly said, your retirement plan can have two kind of expenses. One is your joy expenses, and I think that's where the spending wealth actually comes into. Like spending can be aspirational, spending can be intentional, and spendings can be joyful, and that's what I think the crux can be. So by the very term, wealth is an aspirational. I don't think the word wealth is anyway linked to any kind of a fear or any kind of a negative, because the moment you are creating wealth, only aspirational people can create wealth, right? Because otherwise, if you see, and obviously, spending wealth can be can be a new age terms which might be confusing, but I think investment is spending wealth, probably because it's a very guilty, it's a very difficult term. For example, I'm not being able to I'm not being able to understand what does a spending wealth means. You create wealth to spend, right? So rather I would say very difficult. I think what can be the different terms that comes under spending wealth? Don't waste your money can be converted into spend what makes your feeling good, or let's say spending wealth can be cut expenses, which can be converted into aligned expenses with your aspiration. To cut the long story short, I think I don't know. Spending wealth for me is a very, very difficult topic. It makes me feel guilty. The moment I heard the word spending wealth, I came across my mother's thing. तू नालायक है, तू अपना बाप का पैसा, you are wasting your father's money. So somewhere spending wealth got me to that zone. But again, I think very difficult. I really don't know if Dowser can add to it.
Spend wealth to add wealth. So anything Dowser for you can add on to that.
Nice,
Getting
Romit.
into a,
Nice, Romit, and nice. What is that, Romit? Is it?
No, I said if you can add. Spending wealth for me is a guilty feeling. I got into a guilt feeling zone.
Yeah,
Okay,
I would like to do something. This is.
Yeah.
Shall I go?
Yeah, please.
Like when we you buy a house, and on a loan which you pay for the bank. What it is called? EMI, right? It's a equated monthly installments. That is for the future. You own that and you earn. And there is another way of looking at for creating a wealth. We call another EMI. That is EMI is equity monthly investment. Investing monthly in equity. then you create a wealth. That's the first part of it, for how you can redefine your EMIs. And the spending wealth, when you said, it's a very interesting phrase. Spending wealth is not a crime. And if I am spending my yesterday's money, today it is a joy. If I am spending tomorrow's money, today it is a crime, because I end up paying with a interest added to it. That's the first part of it. And second, whatever wealth we create, while the legacy, everything we speak, it is a wealth is to create a joy for you. It is not sacrifice your joy. And you know how you need to have a patterns of spending. And if you know the patterns of spending and understanding your spending patterns, you're just part of the wealth you're enjoying, but not the full wealth. You know, it's like and that's one part of it. For example, you know, if I have a passion to drive, say Merc, then if I put it, it is like, you know, I'm not spending my wealth. Probably it is like, you know, I'm investing my wealth into the Merc which I am buying, which is my passion, which is my joy, which is my dream, and you know, which I can work for it. And that dream and joy compounding to me to create my productivity, probably I can create one more wealth, one more asset class, because my joy is very different. I mean, you know, we should not define, we should not confine, like, you know, not to spend kind of it. And probably definitely we need to spend. Wiseful spending is the most important part. And, you know, unwiseful is you pay the price little later. That's where I look at it.
So let me come into this, right? So I think that this boils down to something called needs and wants, right? Spending is basically needs and wants, right? And what's the need? Or something which is obligatory is a need, want is a desire. Now, Romit, let me ask you a question, although you are a wrong person to ask this question, right? But still, I'll ask you a question, right? Buying a new cell phone handset while you already have one which is working, is it a need or a want?
Need or a want, you are saying? Need or a want?
Yeah. When you have a handset which is, yeah, Priya wants to answer that.
I mean, it's a want. It's not a need. I have a working handset.
The second question is, buying a gift for your boyfriend or husband, is it a need or a want? On his birthday.
It's a need.
So that means needs and wants are very personal in nature.
Wow.
Right? So what is something is a need for me could be a want for you. Something is a want for you can be a need for me. How do you find out whether something is your need and want? That's the crux of spending. So whenever you spend money on anything in life, ask 3 questions to yourself and answer them truthfully to yourself, and you will come to know whether it's a need or not. First question is, what will happen if I do not buy it? And if the answer comes, nothing would happen or something would happen which doesn't matter to me, then it's a want. You can skip it. But still the answer comes, no, I have to buy it because I cannot face the consequence of not buying it. Then ask the second question. What will happen if I do not buy it now? Can I postpone the purchase? It's always better to postpone a purchase than to do it today. Why? Because money has time value. Money spent later can be invested today to make more money. So the sale for me is a 4-letter word. But it makes you buy things which you don't need it today. Right? And the last question which you need to ask is, what will happen if I buy something of a lesser value? Is a cheaper alternative available or not? Maybe one rose flower, some sweet talks, and no need of a gift. There is always a cheaper alternative available. And people who ask these 3 questions end up spending more money on their needs than their wants. And then the money is wisely spent. Right? Spending needs to be wise. Right? We are not people who would ruin your today for a better tomorrow. But neither would we allow you to ruin your tomorrow for a better today. That's where the crux is in spending. Right? So that is very personal in nature. But problem today is, and my parents were better in defining their needs and wants. Right? I am better than my son in defining my needs and wants. That thing is going down and down. People today's generation cannot, very few of them are able to distinguish between a need and want. That's where spending is most important.
I mean, a different concept altogether from three of you regarding spending wealth, which clears a lot of fog in the mind regarding spending wealth. So, I'll move on to the next phase of this podcast, which says about a recent study that said that 28% of Indian HNI family has not written a succession plan. So this moves on to a very important topic of this podcast, which clearly says that as per the recent survey, it's only 28% of Indian HNIs have written their succession plan. That means even the richest often leave things uncertain. Now, my question is to the veteran of the industry regarding succession planning. Why succession is still a taboo, and how can we make a dinner table conversation? How can we make it a dinner table conversation?
Reason why succession is a taboo is that people don't want to talk about death. They don't want to plan their death, right? And that's the biggest reason people, because it's something which is fearful, which is not very pleasant, it's an unpleasant thought. So that's the reason most people don't plan their succession. I can give you 5 reasons why people don't generally plan their succession, right? First is people say, I'm married, so everything after my death will go to my spouse or wife, right? So why should I make a succession plan? It's already decided. She or he will get it, which is totally false, right? Second reason people give me, I have done nominations and joint accounts, so I don't need a succession plan. They will automatically inherit, which is also false because nominee is not the owner, nor is the joint owner. Third reason which people give to me is it's a taboo, right? If I make a will or a trust, I will die early. And I have done something apshakun ho gaya, right? Which also I don't buy. Another reason which I get from people is my children will never fight over my money. I have raised such good children with such good upbringing, इतने अच्छे संस्कार दिए हैं, character दिया है, that they will never ever fight for my wealth. Right? To these parents, I always ask a question. The question is very simple. When your child was a kid and you bought them toys, did they fight over the toys you bought for them? And if they could not share their toys while they were kids and while you were alive, what makes you believe they'll be able to share your inheritance after you are gone and they have a life partner who's also interested in these assets? Right? And the last thing which people tell me, it's a very complicated process. Succession planning is very time consuming, it's complex, right? It's very costly. And none of these 5 reasons are true. None of them are true. Right? These are all phantoms of our mind, right? Which we have built because we don't want to plan for death. That's the only reason I can say. Right? I would have trained thousands of people, lakhs of people. But after their training, how many did their planning? Very few. Knowing is not doing. Knowing is not doing, right? That's another problem this industry faces.
I mean, doing is doing. You think and you do is doing actually. So my next question for you regarding succession planning, that what are the 3 tools that every family, regardless of the income, should know about will, trust, or nomination?
Okay, so you want to know what 3 documents every person should have?
Yes.
So basically, there are not 3, there are 5 documents which every person should have. First is a will, which allows you to give your assets to whoever you want after you pass away. Second is something called letter of guardianship if you have minor children, so that you can give custody of these children to people you trust in case both you and your spouse pass away. Right? You decide where the custody of the child goes. Third is something which is called an asset information sheet. When we pass away, the information we carry also passes away. Who owes me money? Whom do I owe money? Right? Where are my important papers kept? Right? That bank locker key is where? Right? All of that information passes away. Maybe the couple knows, but suppose the couple have a simultaneous death, like we saw a few days back. Both stepped into the same aeroplane. The child is in London. right? So what will happen to that information, right? You have to create a system of passing information to the next generation. Fourth document is in case you are incapacitated, you are unable to take financial decision, you are in coma, you are paralytic, you are mentally unsound. Then what arrangements have you made for somebody to step into your shoes and do what you allow them to do? Right? So that's basically disability planning. And the last document is something called a living will. Right? It's a document which allows you to take end of life decisions. So suppose you are on a ventilator for more than 10 days, right? Brain dead, less than 5% chance of recovering, and doctors keep you artificially alive. Why? Because they're legally bound to do it. And maybe some of them think we are making money on this person's body. For that, you can create a document called living will, which allows you to specify conditions under which life support should be withdrawn from you. Right? If you have made these 5 documents, you have done stage 1 of your succession and inheritance planning. The stage 2 is the private family trust, where succession planning becomes the art. And I am a firm believer every Indian should have a private family trust. Right? So it's not an optional document; it's a compulsory document for all Indians.
Indeed, sir. I mean, the way that India's financial journey is progressing, definitely the points that you have mentioned should be actually in the mind of every Indian family, that they should do it. I mean, it scares me a lot that if some piece of the information misses out when the person passes away, I mean, small bits and informations which we don't even think that carries a value. But yes, while you say everything, it definitely carries a value, and if that's lost, that scares in the mind.
So we had a case where this person had everything in his laptop, the information, but nobody knew the laptop password. So you miss those small things, your user ID, passwords, yeah, so much information you carry, and have you created that system? Very, very important. And you have to, I jokingly sometimes say, you have to ensure it goes only after your death. If it goes before death, it can be a cause of death also.
Nicely put in, sir. So my next question is to Rao, sir, that you interact with advisors, you interact with advisors across India. How can financial advisors help to initiate succession conversation without scaring clients, actually?
Yeah, I think thanks, Priya, and kudos to Deepak. I think the kind of work he has done in the succession planning and will writing. There is no one next to him. I mean, kudos to him and the next gen, the kind of work which is done, and lot to be done. I had a privilege to work with Deepak during COVID times, and we have created few thousands of people writing the will online, and some who got unfortunately who are no more. And those families that today, when we go and meet the kind, because of that will, we have safeguarded our financial wealth. That's the important part. And today, I mean, coming back on the distribution, I think every advisor, when he or she is doing the financial planning for the client, probably the conversation we should make the family, like the family financial conversations, we can make the conversations much more ease. I mean, make that comfort level with the client of the will writing. And while you do these conversations meticulously, you get an advantage. As a financial advisor, I get an advantage if I'm writing a will. Say, if I am sitting with Romit and I have to I have to do his financial planning for him. The moment I talk about will and the other stuff, I get to know all the assets what he or she he is having. Then I can plan holistically as well. That's the first part. And financial advisors will play a very key role in this space. And recently, when Deepak ji was doing, there is a chartered estate and succession and estate planning programs, and these IMFDs who are eitherwise the financial planners, and they felt this is the most appropriate for them to have the conversations. And it's I mean, when you have, and most of them, they have the comfort with the client to talk many things about the money. And for me, the MFD today is not just a mutual fund distributor. I call him as it's a multi-generational financial designer. They create that map for the multi-generation. Today, third generation of IFA serving the third generation of investor, and that's where the comfort will come. I mean, my sincere advice to all the financial advisors is one, be an estate planner, be a authority on that. If you are not the one, get into the certification. Second, make these conversations, and you are doing uh, amazing work for your client, because that lasts for longer. As earlier Deepak said, the episode which we have seen at Ahmedabad, which is a painful stuff, which never none of us can spray. It should not happen to anyone, but somewhere if you can keep things right, you are at safe, you are at a comfort level, and that gives a lot of peace of mind. And even for us, your assets are spread across, and you will get to know where what available, and where your family can be more comfortable, and you can be at peace, and you can take a call on how you can plan. I think a financial advisor play a very crucial role in succession planning, and he or she need to be an expert in this space. And will writing is definitely the most sought after for us. And normally we have a WILL, that is wish I live longer, but unfortunately it is not in our hand.
Wow, definitely put it into thoughtful words, Rao sir, and the kind of abbreviations that you create. I'm very much fascinated with that. The different concept of looking at a term, basically. So, moving on to the last part of this podcast. Now, REITs, AIFs, and global equity, gold funds. The list is ongoing, but is the knowledge keeping up? Now, my question is to Romit sir, that how do you approach alternative investments with your Gen Z followers, and what are they curious about or confused about, or just about?
In fact, Priya, I'll tell you what, even if you have not said that it is for Romit sir, the moment you use the word REIT, AIF, and Gen Z, I could have imagined this question would have come to be the most youngest guy in this panel. Thank you very much. Alternative investment, in our country, alternative investment is looked down as something which is an alien, right? Because the moment you talk about alternative investment, people think that it is something different. But alternative investments in our definitions of regulations is any investment which you make in a non-listed entities or unlisted businesses. Now, every business today, whether it is Deepak Jain starting AAFM India or Uday Kotak starting a Kotak Bank, at some point of time of their originations, they were always private investments, correct? Because every business starts with family, friends, and father. We call it a triple F stage. So every business has a cycle. Now, but since you have said that, how do you approach Gen Z with an in alternative investment? So it slightly get more complex, correct? Because if you talk about the Gen Z as a generation now, unka entire investment journey is limited within Shark Tank, Insta Reels, and crypto memes. So पूरा entire उनका जो investment journey होता है ना, वो ये तीनों चीज के अंदर में होता है. So it is very difficult. But I again congratulations to the Shark Tank. They created a massive excitement about so-called alternative investments in India. The three things which I think the Gen Z, because we run at AAFM India, we run one of the most interesting programs on alternate investment funds, and today most of our participants are, I don't know whether they are Gen Z not, but they are young distributors and investors. So I think the first thing that any Gen Z investor would be confused or curious about the alternative investments would be, which is the new assets in trend, kaun sa naya cheez chal raha hai. I think that's the first, because these are always guys who are always looking for new ideas, correct? So kaun sa naya asset trend kar raha hai, that is the first thing that they are curious. Obviously, this generation is extremely result oriented. The next thing that they would be curious about is, isme kitna paisa banega? And I think that's the second thing that they would be curious enough. And obviously, these two questions can answer them satisfactorily. The third question will automatically come cashish. So they would be curious about cashish. How do we start about it? App hai kya? Is there any app to start this? Because all of these guys, they want a low entry barrier and DIY, do it yourself tools. I have been to one of my friend's house where their mid-age daughter, she was investing through very very new platform like Wintwell, the Decimal, Tai, Grape. These are new alternate assets platforms. So the three things that they're curious is, obviously the first one is कौन सा नया asset trend में चल रहा है. The second is इसमें पैसा बनेगा, अगर बनेगा तो कितना बनेगा. And if these two questions satisfy them, the third question that they would be curious enough is, how do we start? Do we have an applications for it? Now, only one thing that they are confused, you know, and I think every Gen Z that you speak today, they are conceive, and this is not only about with Gen Z. This is also applicable with also veteran investors. That when do we exit? What is the level of business? Because investment in alternate investments are very very risky. Because unlike public investment, private investment do not have publicly available data, right? So the biggest problem for any investors, investing into unlisted securities is like entering into a chakravyuh. You know, chakravyuh probably is one of the main reasons for which the entire Mahabharata was written. In fact, Dr. Rao would be able to give a more light on that. But I think the only thing that confuses a Gen Z when it comes to any form of investment, whether it is alternate, whether it is conventional, whether it is traditional, whether it is any form of investment. I think one thing that which create confusions in their mind is, where do we exit or how do we exit? Because these peoples are very very short. They are very short timed. They do not have much time in the end. That's why I said discipline, SIP. They are boring for them. They don't like the word discipline. They don't like longevity. They don't like them. So three things which create curious is, how much money, कौन सा नया trending assets, how do I invest, and I think the factor that creates confusion is, how do I exit, when do I exit, who can or whom should I exit for, exit with, because alternative investments are not a publicly available instrument, so you need to find a buyer to sell your holdings. So I think that's the three confusions. I think
Very nicely put in, sir. My next question again to you is, are alternative assets just for the wealthy, or do they have a place in the retail portfolio?
you're asking this to me?
Yes, sir.
No, I think because this is okay. I was expecting something called Gen Z or a millennial in my questions, but Priya, I don't think alternative investment is meant for any so-called labeled investors, because if you see the normal business around, like for example, today you will see lot of young guys passing out from engineering colleges and management schools. They have incubation center in their colleges, and these are best brains. These are brilliant brains, because I've seen my daughter as well. They have got brilliant brains, and even my daughter who has done class 12, and I tell her, what do you want to do? She said, I want to have my own startups on helping unprivileged or maybe distressed women or but girl child. She wants to create an education platform only for distressed and underprivileged girl child, so that whenever these girl childs are, they can attend those schools and colleges. So the concept of alternative investment is not meant for some matured investors or somebody who understand risk. And that's where we make the concept probably ulta. For investors like us, or maybe for the investors like Deepak sir or Rao sir, we need more traditional defined investment. But for my daughter, or maybe girls of their stage, or investors of their age, or maybe slightly elder, pass out from a college, I think alternate investment makes more sense to them. More sense, because and if you find a good business and if you have time in your hand, I think uh, you can create enormous amount of wealth. So I think alternative investment is nowhere linked to any specific client. Every investor can invest, and that is why under the SEBI regulations also you have got three different categories of alternative investment. But again, with respect to investors category, I think anybody who loves business, anybody who loves who loves equity, how does it matter Kotak Bank is listed or Kotak Bank is unlisted? If the bank is good and it is serving the purpose, I want to buy a part of it. So alternative is just in the frame of mind. Every businessman is in an alternate investment mode until unless you become listed and your company becomes available for bigger public domain. So everybody is in an alternate investment space, and that's what makes me surprised. If we are in an alternative investment space by ourselves, why are we so reluctant about investing into an alternate investment fund? Correct. Because alternate investment funds invest into unlisted space. I am doing a business which is into unlisted space. So where is the disconnect? I am not Uday Kotak. I am not Mukesh Ambani that my business is in listed format. So I don't understand unlisted. When they started at unlisted format and they eventually grown into a listed format. So unlisted business probably is for everybody. I would want more insight from Browser and Deepak sir. But for me, if I am doing an unlisted business, what stops me from investing into an unlisted business? So that's how I look at it, and that's how I convince my client also.
I mean, none other the less. I always say you are an alternates guru, so definitely that defines the language in terms of that. Any views?
That's what I said. How can Deepak Jain be can be against an alternate investment, because his company AFM is an unlisted business. So he is already into an unlisted business. He is into an alternate investment mode. How can he say no to an alternate investment fund? So every distributor is running an alternate business. So he is already into an alternate investment format. So that's right. Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. Yeah. Please.
I mean, for me, only advice to any investor is invest in investments what you can understand. Yeah, that's if you don't understand, probably don't venture into it. That's the way.
I think that's
that's the way. If I for example, for me, crypto appears Greek and Latin. However, it's good. I can't put my money till the time I understand. Once I understand, I may look at it. That's the way I do it.
Wow, put in a lot of good words related to alternate assets and investments. Now, Rao sir, I would like to ask you one last question related to it, which says that education is the backbone of good investing. Since you mentioned right now that if you don't understand, don't invest. So, sir, how is AAFM India building that foundation for investors and professionals?
Yeah, it's a fabulous question, Priya. It's like, this is one organization. Today, it's the most important organization in the Indian context, I look at. When we are envisioning the country as a 2047 Vikshit Bharat, it's a developing economy to the developed economy. And this is a transition. You have an opportunity to create a lot of wealth. But that wealth, as we envisage, can we look at it? Can be everyone can get benefit out of it. And today, how I can create that wealth, how I can manage my wealth, and how I can live my wealth. That's the whole thing which is coming in. And in this space, we need to do lot, learn, unlearn, and relearn, because things are changing fast. For example, 5 years back, if we have to sit here and have a conversation, probably Romit's main portfolio of alternate was not non-existent. And there is only investment which is happening through the active on the mutual funds or the bank deposits or the safe traditional deposits. And slowly things are changing faster. You have an alternate investments, you have a REITs, you have a gift city giving an opportunity, and you have plenty of such opportunities which is coming in, because India is at the cusp of its growth. Maybe in the next 20, 25 years, we can see the changes happen much faster and huge wealth is being created. This is a time, if you want to be there, education is the only vehicle, only tool which can help you not only to unlearn but also relearn where you intend to get there. And at AAFM, the vision which is envisioned is, work with, make this as a, while Vikshit Bharat is the dream which is going to come true, but before that we can create a financially empowered India. And when it is a financially empowered India, I think, our regulator always says one caption, educated investor is an empowered investor is a protected investor. And at AAFM, whatever we design today, whether in the space of financial literacy or in the financial education, our maqsad, our vision is One, I need to create a Shikshit partner, Shikshit distributor, who is a skilled distributor, which can make Surakshit investor, which is a protected investor, which can lead to the Vikshit Bharat. Then in the process, we create an intermediary who is got fully empowered, and investor who is getting rightly guided and leading that investment not only to the country is growing, but you can also grow. You can create a wealth. That is a mission of AAFM. And why we pay much more role? This is an institute which can play a very different commitment. One, you have a like for anyone, I need certification. For example, you come and all of us will say, I am a management graduate. I go with my CV. Similarly, when somebody in investment, which platform you are coming? You are coming for a small, to start with an MFD, you can become a goal planner, you can become a retirement planner. You have a niche market which is happening there. And the second best is, when alternate investments, when we are talking about Gift City, when we are talking about the wealth which is being created, you need to be a wealth manager. You understand the wealth as a gamut. There's only one certification which is globally recognized, which can give you is a chartered wealth manager. This, and the one which I can look at is on the succession planning, the way the kind of work NextGen does. And you need to understand that I think intergenerational wealth transfer is going to be a multitude. I think amount is much more higher. The country's GDP is growing. Probably what I got from my father could be much lesser. What I'm going to give to my children will be much higher. Then this is where you need to have a learning which can be appropriate, which can be a more tax efficient. Then you can do. Because my question is, one is lifelong learning, continuous learning, whether it is a certification. We have a platform, we have something for everyone. Whether you are a distributor, just starting, whether you are an evolved distributor, we are with you. And as the things are evolving, we are also evolving. Today, if you can see on this screen, each of us will come with a very different way, which can complete the gamut of the wealth management cycle. Means, AFM, probably in the days to come, I look at, this is the most respected financial education academy in the country, which can add a lot of value and where people can create wealth by taking informed investment decisions. I think this is what I can say, and we can talk about each of these vertical, how it can work, whether it is whether you need a certification, whether you need a program. One, like for example, if I have to go to some other country, first thing I need is in Indian aspect, I need my passport. This can give you a passport to do what you can sell, and it can help you even for your certification exams. Then you need to get into your various countries. You need to adapt. You can get your visa. Means you need to sell a different product and understand that country geography. You have a different visas. You have different asset classes to understand, different geographies to invest in, different boundaries to put it, and then you have different taxation to look at. You have, and the last but not the least, each investor is very different. There is somebody for alternate, somebody is for a mutual fund, somebody is you can cater to anyone. You can pick and choose what you want to learn, and we are something for everyone and everything for someone.
Wow, a bouquet of flowers, you can say. You can pick and choose which smells nice. You can pick and choose what best you like, what color you like. I wanted to ask Romit sir, what's your views on that? I mean, your vertical.
See, I think alternate investment is an emerging space, and if the country, as as Dr. Rao said, so Sikshit distributors, Surakshit investors, and Vikshit Bharat. That's what he said. I think if all of these has to achieve, if you have to achieve, all these three components, you have to have a lot of private investments. No country can grow without private investments. And I think that's where alternate investments can play a very important role. The world is changing very fast. Even for for a distributors, I keep saying, Ki Romit sir, I want to do a course on alternate investment. When I ask them why, the basic answer is the investors want it, and that's the sign of a great uprising. There was a book called Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell, and it is one of the finest book that I've ever read. That a book says that everything that becomes a success has a tipping point, beyond which it becomes a success. So probably we are at that cusp. We are at that tipping point where we get into that trajectory of super growth, super achievement, that very definition of Viksit Bharat, and that can only come from private investments. And that is where the opportunity of alternate investment is. We need hundreds of Kotak banks, we need hundreds of Reliance investors, we need hundreds of Asian banks. The country is big, the opportunity is large, and 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 that's where the alternate investments can create magic for this.
I wanted to ask the same thing to Deepak, sir. I mean, AFM has been a baby for you, so it is flourishing and growing. So, just wanted to ask your opinion how AFM India can connect to every aspect of a human life, from starting to the end when we start learning and to the applied knowledge.
We are already catering to a person from cradle to grave and beyond the grave also. Right, so that's what we are already doing. Yeah, so at every life stage, you have something in AFM for every person and every part of the society also. Right, so you might have an investor awareness program for a village woman, and we have something for a program for a director of a company. So we are catering to all of that. But as Romit said, we have not reached our tipping point still. I still see we are little far away from that, and there are miles to go, right? And with that kind of people who are joining us, like Rao sir and Romit sir, I know we'll do it one day. The tipping point is very near to us.
The way things are shaping up in the country for the education, we will never reach a tipping point because it's always something is away, and that's very good for all of us and good for everyone because. Other day when I have a conversation with Romit, something, he is much ahead to create the first guy to go back and do something for the GIFT City certification. He is the first person. Then regulator is not even come with a document. SAF is released. He got a presentation which is ready for the SAF. This, thinking ahead of the terms and things are available. That's always, our tipping point is like a little away for all of us, and we will reach to that, and that next tipping point will come. Because it's like the Mount Everest we can reach, but we are here, our Everest is ever growing, we can't reach.
Moving to the final part of this podcast, now one final question, and it's a personal one for each of you. Now, what is your definition for real wealth? Is it freedom? Is it legacy? Or is it peace?
Let me start with this. I'll go with the wealth management view, and they can go to the maybe more philosophical view. Right? So, as per wealth management, there are 4 kinds of wealth which a person has. Right? First is called the human wealth of a person. Second is called the financial wealth. Third is called the intellectual wealth. And fourth is called the social wealth. Right? So, these 4 kinds of wealth we all have. What is your human wealth? There are people in your life whom either you are converting into money or can convert into money. Right? So it could be your family members, it could be your employees, and the most important human wealth which you have is you yourself. You are converting yourself into money day in, day out. Right? Second is financial wealth. Financial wealth, all of you know what common parlance you call wealth is. Financial wealth, all your assets, financial assets, real estate, etc. is financial wealth. Third, which is very, very important today, it is called intellectual wealth. It is your mind being converted into money. Your mental faculties being converted into money. It could be some unique skill you have, some unique knowledge you have, some way of working you have developed, right? Some IPR you hold, some patents you hold, some copyrights you hold. All of that is your intellectual wealth, right? And last is your social wealth. These are your relationships being converted into money, right? These relationships could be with customers, it could be with colleagues, it could be with people in power, it could be any relationship which has the power to be converted into money. And sum total of this is really your wealth. So most people actually do not know their wealth. They think financial wealth is their only wealth. And as a wealth manager, my job is to enhance, protect, and transfer all 4 of them. Just think, I have to help you enhance your human, financial, intellectual, and social wealth. I need to protect your human, social, intellectual, and all wealth, and I'll have to help you transfer it to the next generation. And when you think of this canvas of wealth management, then you think how big a job it is. This is basically your life planning. Life planning and wealth management planning are not very different things. But if you can do these three things for these four kinds of wealth of yours, you have done your job as a wealth manager, right? And I'll just end by putting you a quote or something. Uh, we use this term asset. What is an asset? Anything and everything that can be converted into money is an asset. Yes? And by this definition, are your skills an asset? Is your knowledge an asset? Is your reputation an asset? Is your are your relationships an asset? Right? Best example of an asset I got in a conference in Chandigarh. Right? So Rao sir, I was doing this CFGP there, and there was this old lady sitting at the back. Right? I asked her, give me some example of an asset. She said, my husband is an asset. I said, why? She said, I can convert him into money anytime I want.
For me, I have never analyzed so-called wealth so deeply. But yes, I think, fearless freedom that allows me to live in peace is a wealth. That's what I look for. I don't have any fear, and obviously freedom can be, as Deepak sir said, it can be intellectual freedom, it can be social, it can be. So for me, anything that helps me to live with peace, fearless freedom is my definition of it.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Great.
Well said. Awesome. Probably, after both of you, I don't know how to define, but it's a very the term wealth we use for everything. But I go when Deepak said the four forms of the wealth. Probably I say, I always used to see it as five forms of the wealth. It's financial wealth is one of them. You have a physical wealth that is called your health. First, in fact, your life partner for you is not your life partner. Your body is your life partner. Taking care of your personality body, that's a physical health. Then you have a financial health, which is you can manage the financial well-being, which we spoke. Third one I look at is the emotional wealth, because it fluctuates more than the market, and market is volatile, but your emotional wealth is much more volatile than the market. And then the intellectual wealth, which Deepak spoke about, how you can create, using your intellect, how you can create a wealth. And intellectual wealth, you can pass it on to the generations without any complication. I don't need to write a will for it, but it will go on if it is worth it. Today we read Mahatma Gandhi or Mother Teresa or Swami Vivekananda. They didn't write anything, but we get a benefit out of them. And the last one I look at is a spiritual wealth, which is beyond your body, beyond your mind, and beyond the spiritual wealth you can create. And probably the road to financial wealth is typically a KPI. What is the road to financial wealth? KPI is, if I want to create a right wealth for my financial wealth, I need to have a right knowledge, and I should have enough patience. Then I need to have an investment, which is regularly. That KPI can create a financial wealth to me. And the last I look at the wealth is in an acronym, which I can talk about is that is a wealth at the end. Have you got that wisdom to live and pass on the legacy? The first one is W is a wisdom, and second is the education, which can be a lifelong learning. Today AAFM, we are fortunate to have been part of that. And third one is the assets which we create, whether it is an alternate assets, whether it's a mutual fund assets, or the real assets which are on the ground. And the L stands for is the longevity. It is like, I think somebody said it is like financial longevity is like, the money is serving for you as long as you are there, and after that it's the longevity which you can look at. While you are creating that wealth, the T part is the tranquility with which you are living it. Money, when you are earning and enjoying, it should give a peace of mind, not pieces of the mind. The tranquility is the most important part. And the last but not the least, I can see on the face of the Priya is that happiness. That is a true wealth. You know, I can repeat that WEALTH. You have a wisdom, you have an education, you have a L is languidity, T is a tranquility, and H is a happiness. If that is a true wealth, and we can aspire to be one that.
I mean, wow. I would also would want to ask my listeners who are there sitting outside the screen, yeah, that what is your idea for real wealth, and do share us in the comment box that what is the idea of real wealth for you. Now, fabulously put in a lot of good words regarding real wealth. I must say thank you so much, Rao sir, Deepak sir, and Romit sir, for not just giving us insights but making us feel real and achievable wealth meaning. So, to our listeners, whether you are just at the starting out, midway in your career, or helping family to plan better, remember wealth is not a product, it's a process. I hope all of you would agree on to that with me.
Absolutely.
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 Thank you so much, sir. So with this, I would definitely go ahead, and so we have a bonus activity for our mutual fund distributor friends. If you would like to discuss the business opportunities or training opportunities with AFM India, you can directly get in touch with our directors of AFM India. You'll find the link in the comment box, so definitely you can go through that and connect with us. Now, this conversation doesn't end here. Every fortnight, we'll meet you at the same place, same time, with new voices, new stories, new ways to think about money and meaning. So, till then, we stay wise, stay curious, stay wealthy in every sense of the word. Thank you so much. Namaste.